At 3:04 a.m., the air tasted like hot tar and diesel. My phone flashlight cutting a thin cone through dust that hung over my front pasture, and right there in that beam, I saw it. My gravel drive, the one I paid extra for, so I wouldn't answer to anyone buried under a fresh skin of blacktop, like someone dressed my land for their parade. Cedar posts yanked and tossed like broken teeth. Bright survey flags hammered flat, 2 stone pillars at the highway junction, with a shiny brass plaque that read, Sagebrush Meadows. Grand entrance. My land, their name cute. A certified letter was zip-tied to my gate, smiling in legal $100 for a community upgrade. $90 a month forever, plus landscaping to match their standards, or they'd start talking liens. Yeah, that happened. I'm Mason Hale. I sold my concrete outfit in Albuquerque and bought 3 acres outside Red Mesa, New Mexico for Peace Big Sky, a gravel strip I purchased as a separate access easement, not part of the subdivision, not subject to their covenants. That line matters. It's the guardrail that keeps this story from going off a cliff. My wife Rachel runs a middle school. Our daughter Lila loves engines more than dances. And we moved out here for a quiet that you can feel, the kind that hums in your chest when the crickets start up, until the rumble of paving equipment took that quiet and turned it into something mean. I walked into the HOA office the next morning, still in work jeans, dust on my boots, and Celeste Barrington. President, broker, collector of trophies, with her name on them slid out from behind a glass desk, like she'd been waiting to audition for Queen of the Cul-de-sac, Mr. Hale. We're bringing your rustic access up to community standards, she sang, circling rustic on a giant map where my driveway was colored yellow and labeled Future Community Throughway. I told her, private means private. I told her I paid for private. She smiled. The way people smile at a toddler holding a butter knife. Previous owner verbally agreed to road sharing. This helps property values. You want values to rise, don't you? And I said, I want folks to stop pretending my land is their park. Does that count as a value? On my way home, a security guard in a golf cart flagged me at the end of my own drive clipboard. Ready? Sir, I need to verify your authorization to use this community access. And I said kindly, you're on my land. He shrugged, ma'am. Says all vehicles need verification. He said, ma'am. Like royalty. I drove around him and kept my temper, because I know dirt and paperwork, and in my world, nobody touches one without the other. County planning said there were exactly 0 permits for paving or pillars or signs. So 48 hours later, an orange stop work order flapped from Celeste's pretty stone entrance, and I won't lie. That wind felt like Christmas morning, but power hates embarrassment. So the mailbox coughed up $500 a day in fines for failure to maintain common space. They rebranded my driveway as theirs and fined me for not mowing it to their standard. And neighbors cornered Rachel at the grocery store with soft voices and hard eyes. We're concerned about your husband's behavior, while Lila closed her curtains for the first time and said it felt like living in a fishbowl. And if you're a parent, you know what that does inside your ribs. You know what I mean. I called 3 folks not for war, just for clarity. Hank Doyle. 2 houses down, retired Marine, with a stillness that makes people tell the truth. Put up cameras that could catch a mosquito chewing. Sloan Rivera, a private investigator, who looks like a librarian and digs like a backhoe, traced a web of shell companies in Celeste's orbit. Mesa Vista Holdings, Sunland Estates, Partners Desert, Gate LLC, And if you've ever bid a development, you know the move called assemblage. You buy around the target, then pressure the last holdout. Priya Menon, neighbor and physician, pulled statutes and case law and said prescriptive easement is a math problem, 10 years of open use, or it doesn't count. And we had receipts for winter chains and monsoon closures going back decades. That story about everyone always using my drive melted fast. Then came the pressure from angles that smell like strategy. My property tax jumped to reflect improvements I didn't ask for insurance. Wanted $4 grand more for supposed commercial exposure. Someone cut the irrigation line where it crossed the fresh asphalt. And then the phone rang, Mr. Hale. I understand you're planning to destroy community infrastructure. You'll need a $5,000 deposit. Celeste, purring like she was doing me a favor, and I laughed the kind of laugh a man makes when the umbrella breaks, and he decides to enjoy the rain. I don't brag about old tools, but I keep them oiled when I sold my company. I stayed a silent partner in a recovery yard that handles municipal contracts. Tow trucks, impounds paperwork, sharp as a scalpel. And at 5 a.m. on a Sunday, after I posted fresh private road, tow away zone signs, and filed notice with the sheriff. A quiet fleet waited on County Road 6, with headlights off by 6 a.m. Every HOA ringleader's car that had parked along my newly paved drive like it was a free lot had vanished to a legal yard, documented, filmed, paid, and I left a voicemail at the HOA that said, "You'll find your cars where you left my property rights." A law firm that once negotiated my business sale sent a cease and desist, threatened a $50,000 suit for destruction of community property. I pinned it on my shop corkboard and wrote art. Under it, then, Celeste invited me to an informal mediation at the county building, and anyone who's worn a hard hat knows that informal means someone's about to get formally handled. 12 board members, a lawyer with expensive eyebrows, a PowerPoint. About community impact, then her offer, $1,250 to buy an easement. I'd already paid 80 grand for, and I stood, smoothed my jacket. Said I'll consider it. After you consider my counter of 0 and a public apology. Then I walked out, and I swear you could hear the commissioner clear his throat, like a man who just realized there are cameras. The Red Mesa Gazette ran a front page. Property dispute divides community, and the aerial photo made my house look like a stubborn island. In a sea of progress, comments turned into a polite bar fight, and I stayed quiet because we were building a war room in my garage. Corkboards and string a clothesline of documents, timelines like rails. And our lawyer Dana Whitaker sat at the card table and laid out a plan that sounded like music. Quiet title, to brand the easement language forever. Federal complaint because that blacktop had shoved runoff into a protected arroyo, anti-slap style protections to slap back at retaliatory suits. Notice to the HOA's insurer, because if a carrier smells fraud, they rescind coverage, and board members suddenly stand alone. That night, Celeste staged a show, unmarked trucks and floodlights and speed bumps at 2 a.m., residents-only signs sprouting like weeds, and our cameras well, my favorite frame is Celeste in a fuchsia tracksuit directing workers, while 100 porch lights blinked awake, and 2 days later, she tried honey on Rachel in the school parking lot. $20,000 cash. If your husband drops his tantrum, where's the money from the Community Improvement Fund? And Rachel had the presence to hit record, which is how you spell twist. Neighbors who'd nodded along started comparing bruises. A teacher named Janet realized she'd been lowballed through a shell company. An older couple's trash had been missed for months after they said no. A contractor recognized the commissioner's electronic signature. On permits, he never inspected the city. Planner was related to a paving owner. Sloan gift-wrapped the pattern for the Attorney General, and then came the day Celeste confused a Facebook event with permission. Community Pride Day. Matching shirts. Bolt cutters. Chainsaws in beds like sleeping snakes. They lined the fence line and posed for selfies, like a tailgate for trespass. And that's when I walked out with my camera and Deputy Rodriguez, who had been quietly adding pages to a file. "Folks step back from the property line," he said, steady as weather. And Celeste smiled, lifted her bolt cutters like a baton. "This man is destroying our community. We have every right to protect our values." And right then, the TV van she had called rolled up and filmed the cuffs closing 2 volunteers. 2, the stop work order, the survey, the bribe video, the drainage map to the arroyo, all on the 6 o'clock. And after that, the chickens did what chickens do. The bank froze accounts tied to Mesa Vista, and Friends the insurer canceled coverage pending investigation. A special meeting turned into a mutiny, and Priya was elected interim president by a landslide. Monthly budgets went online. Dana filed quiet title, and the environmental complaint the morning of the hearing that was supposed to reclassify my road as public. The commission recessed to seek counsel, and when the trial finally came, it felt like an old engine catching. Not pretty. Just inevitable, Kira Alvarez covered every day. Hank's video and Sloan's paper, and Dana's timeline stacked on monitors. Rachel didn't try to be brave. She just was. Lila told the court what it feels like to be 15, and watched by adults who should know better. Celeste delivered a monologue about property values under a sign that says, "In God we trust," and the judge read forfeiture. Like Psalm, the house bought with embezzled funds, the rentals, the BMW time served. Where time is measured in years, fines and restitution, and a recorded order that my easement is private in perpetuity, not subject to association covenants, not 1 inch. The arroyo got restored, my driveway went back to gravel, and sang that crunch again as walk the easement to a new overlook, where a sign explains how desert roots hold a hillside funded by forfeiture, which is a sentence I never thought I'd enjoy. We finally took the Alaska trip, and then, a week later, a letter from the state towing board landed on my kitchen table. The tows were lawful notices, proper signage, correct, and there was one last line about aggressive remedies, inflaming tensions, and I read it twice because 2 truths can fight like cats. Sometimes a bully only respects a tow chain, and winning without making enemies is a skill I'm still learning. A neighbor who'd been loud online stopped at my gate with a 6-pack. "Never liked you," he said, like a fence post. "But I like my money, not getting stolen more. You did what had to be done. You also scared the hell out of people," and I said, "Both can be true." We stood there, listening to crickets, not friends, not enemies, just 2 men who finally understood where the line is. If you walked this far with me, tell me where you're watching from and what you'd have done at 3 a.m. In my boots? Was I right to call the tow trucks? Or did I go too far, even with the law on my side? Do HOAs protect neighborhoods or turn into private governments? The second nobody's watching. Drop your take, argue with me if you need to. And if you've got a story like this, share it. Somebody out there needs to hear they're not crazy. Hit subscribe for the next one. A 72-year-old in Oregon who used a dusty statute to turn her city council's parking lot into a rose garden. You won't believe how she pulled it off.